To Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to it. It's Thursday. By the way, so here's the thing. We've been trying to figure out what to name Thursday. Is it going to stay Turbo Thursday? We decided to move it to maybe T-Bone Thursday. No, that got mixed reviews. We came back around. You know what it came down to? It came down to Thankful Thursday. And apparently, we have a sound effect for that. Thankful Thursday. Hit it.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you!
Hit some applause for yourself right there, man. Did you do that?
I did.
You did do that.
I did do that.
That's pretty awesome. All right, so let us know what you think about the Thankful Thursday sound effect, which I love the fact that it's got Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, both from the meeting they had with Zelensky. I heard that you got to be more thankful.
We had two appearances of the Zelensky encounter, yes.
Good God.
Also two appearances from Michael Scott from The Office.
That is true, too. Good stuff, man. All right, so it's Thankful Thursday. Are you thankful? Don't take it all for granted, y'all. Be thankful. We're going to have a great show coming on here in a moment. Actually at 3:30. It's Thursday afternoon, Thankful Thursday. So now we got Butters and Lee at 3:30. So don't forget that's coming. 3:30, Butters and Lee. And then I got a triple dipper just filled up with stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, activist judges. Yeah, I said it. There it is. There are some out there, activist judges. Now listen, I'm an attorney. I'm going to go Lawyer Williams on you on some of this stuff and tell you what I think about what I'm seeing. But yes, there are indeed activist judges, men and women who take the bench and they forget that justice should have a blindfold on. So we'll talk about activist judges, number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, who dat for governor in 2026? Well, we're going to expand on this, all right? So right now, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida are all having open seat runs for their governor's offices in 2026 at the same time. Is it possible that we could have a conservative bloc? The Southeast could become like this bright red bloc of, I don't know, like really constitutionally based gunslinging governors. I want to know what your thoughts are on it. I got the names of who's expected to be in the fray. Who dat for governor in 2026 is number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, liberal hypocrisy. Listen, I don't know if you've seen it, but right now the Democrats are completely rudderless. They have no leadership. They have no ability to message themselves. They don't know what they stand for. They are just floundering right now. They are sheep in a sheepdog's world. And what is breeding is a massive amount of hypocrisy. Because all the things they've been trying to say that Republicans were or were not, they're doing. And I got examples. I'm bringing receipts on this one. So yeah, liberal hypocrisy, number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, here on Thankful Thursday, let me move on over to the Rightside Way opening monologue. So I'll remind you guys that the Rightside Way opening monologue every single day brought to you by attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. I'm going to tell you more about Stan here in a minute, but yes, Stan McDonald, attorney in North Alabama, the sponsor of the Rightside Way. Okay, so Lawyer Williams talking here for a minute, right? As an attorney, I understand the law. I get the legal concepts of precedent and burden of proof and burden shifting. I respect that there are rules of evidence and rules of procedure, and I appreciate decorum and formality. There's always a way to do things, and there should be. I mean, the enforcement of laws, the application of justice, it should always have some measure of special and set-apart treatment. I know all the judges in my area personally, but I never call them by their first names. It's always Judge or Your Honor. And I appreciate the fact that the law has its nuances, which sometimes requires judicial discretion, even interpretation. Anytime you have a new or novel situation, the legal world refers to that as a case of first impression. It's one that may require new legal and even mental wrangling to go with it. And when that happens, it means that a judge must study and reflect and opine, but always within the confines of the law. So what is the case precedent? What are the applicable statutes? What measure of scrutiny is required? And most importantly, how does the issue before the bench stand in the face of constitutional provisions? Well, having said all that, let me just go full-on cowboy on you. I mean, you all know I use movies sometimes to help me illustrate my points, and there are several that are my go-to favorites. And yes, there's a few movies that are my bona fide Achilles heel, to be honest. If I'm flipping the channels and one of them is on, it's almost a matter of compulsion that I have to stop on that channel and watch for a few minutes at least, which usually winds up stretching into something longer. Like to name a few, you've heard me say them before: The Book of Eli, Open Range, Gladiator, the newest version of Magnificent Seven, The Outlaw Josie Wales, Jeremiah Johnson. Whew, that's some good testosterone-laden cinematic genius, all that stuff right there. And if Charlene's in the room with me, there'll be a couple of minutes of pause, at which point she'll finally say, I don't recall agreeing that we were going to watch this. Can you men relate? But there's one movie that I've told you about before that she and I both tend to agree on. It's a modern-day epic. It's filled with great acting, good scripts, and a constant string of one-liners, and that movie would be Tombstone. Now, anybody who says they don't like Tombstone, well, I'm questioning their patriotism. Any man who says they don't like Tombstone, well, I'm questioning your manhood. Not really. Well, yes, really. So there's several great scenes in Tombstone, all of which are movie history, but the one that I want to focus on today, because I'm talking about the law being blind and justice being applied evenly, I want to go to one scene in that movie today. The one scene. It's a scene in which one of the main bad guys, a member of the Cowboys, is named Curly Bill. He comes out of an opium den. He murders the town marshal, whose name was Fred. Well, Wyatt Earp heard the shots, and he rushed out there, and he pistol whipped Curly Bill. But the townfolk, they loved old Fred the marshal, and an angry crowd began to gather up immediately. And Wyatt, he knew that Curly Bill was guilty, but when the crowd got antsy and one man yelled, "Get a rope!" Wyatt's response was, "Nobody's hanging anybody. He'll stand trial for what he's done." So was Wyatt taking the side of the criminal? But then members of Curly Bill's gang showed up, the Cowboys, and they demanded that Wyatt let him go. And one of those was a guy named Ike Clanton. Ike Clanton tried to bluster his way into making Wyatt Earp let loose of the bad guy, and suddenly Ike found himself staring down the business end of a cult peacemaker, with Wyatt saying, "Your boys might get me in a rush, but not before I make your head into a canoe." So was Wyatt taking the side of the people at that point? I mean, in the whole 3-minute segment, whose side was Wyatt Earp even on? He stopped the bad guy, but then he saved the bad guy. He denied the townsfolk their vengeance, but then he also denied Ike Clanton his attempt to subvert the legal system. So in reality, what that entire scene portrays was that Wyatt Earp's position was to take the side of justice, actual justice, not one side or the other, not biased, but the law, the enforcement and the application of the law, and the outcome supplied by the law through the application of actual non-biased, on the books, keep the peace justice. And look, that sense of actual justice is what liberal DAs and activist judges seem to have forgotten. When a liberal DA, like those so often in the news right now, says that they will not pursue the actual application of law or enforce and prosecute crimes, they often do so under the guise of helping the disenfranchised. But that's not their job. Their job is the equal application of justice. And justice and vengeance, by the way, are not the same thing. Vengeance is the enacting of punishment against somebody for a perceived wrong because there's a grievance. Justice is bigger than that. Justice is a matter-of-fact thing. Justice is even-tempered. Justice is based in both law and fact. Justice is required. It is a duty to enforce and pursue it. What is legally and naturally right, that's what you got to pursue. Vengeance is against the wrongdoer and often a matter of passion, but justice is the even-keeled protection of rights and the stability that comes from law and order, regardless of whether they are enacted on the part of the accused or the accuser or the perpetrator or the victim. So yeah, justice protects the weak. Justice defends the right way of doing things. Justice establishes order in our communities and maintains civility and upholds proper authority. Because you see, justice cares for the aggrieved, but also makes sure that passion and compassion both remained tempered and manageable. Justice is supposed to seek what is best for all. In a sense, justice sets the tone for peace, like real peace. So think back to that scene from Tombstone. What if Wyatt Earp had just joined in with the crowd and said, "Yeah, get a rope"? His character was angry. His character liked old Marshal Fred. But would you have felt as good about his character then if he had done that? Or just the opposite. What if Wyatt had just holstered his pistol and stepped away when the cowboys demanded that he release Curly Bill? I mean, it was a bad spot. They were bullies. Everyone feared them. So Wyatt Earp, he could have just backed down and let it be. But how would you have felt about his character then? Because you see, the character built in the movie for Wyatt Earp was that he was a man of infinite courage and unmitigated cool under pressure, but he was also a man who did not let his emotions get the best of him. A man like that is what we need more of in our society. And men and women who prosecute the law and men and women who take the bench to oversee the application of law, for them to do their jobs appropriately, they have to have those same characteristics. That willingness to set aside their emotion and their passions and to see the even application of justice. Right now, in venues all over the nation, we're seeing an epidemic of injustice, the uneven application of the law. Agenda-driven DAs, many of whom have been backed by George Soros, are making a mockery of actual justice in places like Philadelphia, Baltimore, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, just to name a few. Pursuing soft-on-crime policies that have eliminated the pursuit of real sentencing for violent and gang-related crime, those cities, and others like them, are not seeing justice. They are not living in law and order. And as a result, it's much harder for them to know peace. But we're seeing the same on the bench right now as judges preside over proceedings in which facts and evidence are presented. And while I fully understand that any judge is a person first with personal thoughts and personal desires, they are also, all the same, not allowed to bring personal agendas into the even and equal distribution of the law. Look, I've stood before some good judges and some bad judges. I've won most things I've gone to court on, but I've also had some that I didn't. But only once in a while have I felt the judge was somehow predisposed or had some agenda, or that my client was not well served to be in front of that judge. They're out there. The application of law, y'all, it's a sacred thing. You see, we're a nation of laws. It sets us apart from much of our world history. We are not allowed to let whims and prejudices and agendas or predispositions enter into the prosecution of citizens, nor to be on the bench. But in our polarized society, we're seeing that very objectivity too often goes out the window. Activists are not only acting, but seeking the ability to strip the blindfold off of Lady Justice. In a nation of laws, there's no room for courtroom activists. Lawyers come and lawyers go, but prosecutors and judges, they have a much higher burden of responsibility. And we need more constitutionally grounded, fair-minded, objective, and dispassionate men and women in those positions of such esteem and import. Our society needs it. Basically, we need some more Wyatt Earps to step up. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, I'm going to talk about activist judges here in a minute, but I know you've seen them. Activist judges and activist DAs who bring their agendas to the bench, and then their agendas wind up taking precedent over the laws. And that is not how you find justice. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. So text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT here on Thankful Thursday. Let's play it again. Let's do that. Brand new sound effect. Thankful Thursday. Play it.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you.
Was that Gilbert Gottlieb? What's that guy's name at the very last thank you? What was that very last
That was
one?
Michael Scott.
That was Michael Scott.
From The Office, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
There he goes. Thank you.
Good job, man. All right, hey, listen, I got to tell you real quick. Attorney Stan McDonald. Let me just tell you about Stan McDonald. I know the guy personally. I think the world of him. Attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee in Huntsville. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law, and he is the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue. Oh, by the way, not only is Stan McDonald the kind of guy who will fight for your legal needs, but y'all, I just happen to know personally that he has been an absolute warrior on the things, the politics, the policies that ruffians care about. He's an OG right-side ruffian, let's put it that way. Attorney Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years, and he knows how to stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say when Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend, and your adversaries will have no greater foe. So let me just tell you how to reach him. I'm going to give you his phone number. You ready? Stan McDonald. He's at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. Here's his number, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that. And here's the thing. No representation made. The quality of legal service be performed is greater than the quality of legal service performed by other lawyers. It's always the last part. It's always the last part.
7 out of 10.
The the Russian judge gives it a 7. All right.
6.5.
Okay, 6.5. He nailed the landing, though. All right, so we got text lines open, like I said. Jeff from Indiana says, well, thanks a lot. I guess, was Jeff hoping for something other than Thankful Thursday?
I think he was wanting a revamped Turbo Thursday with his suggested better turbo sound effect with it.
Oh, that's right. He was. That's right. I forgot that. Okay. Sorry, Jeff. You are still much loved. All right. TL from Huntsville says, happy Thankful Thursday, Phil and JP. Great monologue. Here's a thankfulness quote to get you started. It says, gratitude can transform common days into Thanksgivings, turn routine jobs into joy, and change ordinary opportunities into blessings. That's a quote from William Arthur Ward. How about that? Like it. TL, thank you very much from your book of quotes. Stephen from Athens says, Phil, your audience might benefit from a brief discussion of the doctrine of stare decisis. Well, okay. Bottom line is stare decisis, and I mentioned that kind of briefly in my monologue. Stare decisis is it's a Latin phrase. It basically means to stand by things decided. It's talking about using case precedent. So if the law has already ruled on an issue in a prior case, then the judges will look at that prior case as the precedent that has been set. They can occasionally be reversed. They can also be distinguished, but they can't be ignored. So yeah, there's stare decisis in a nutshell. All right, you guys, we got plenty more on tap. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Goes like from Huntsville all the way back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean all the way down to that prettiest little town on the plains called Auburn. Oh, yes, stretching across to Fort Benning. I called it Fort Benning. And big old patches of northwest Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, you guys, listen, we got plenty on tap right now. I'll get a couple more text messages. Text it in, call it in, same number, 833-687-4448. Jeff Rowe from Indiana says, Phil, regarding my monologue, Phil, the problem is that judges are not held accountable and they have too much power, which needs to stop. If they can't cite in the law how they are ruling on a case and the case should be dismissed, basically we need a judge, someone who goes around and has the power and authority to charge them with malice of a defendant and throw them off the bench, and if necessary, put them in a jail if that's how egregious it is. I'm tired of kings and queens in black robes. Okay, all right, Jeff Rowe, I gotta challenge you a bit on that because that's not the case. Are there activist judges? Yes. Can they be removed from office? Yes, they can. And they have been. In Alabama, it's called the JIC, the Judicial Inquiry Commission. If a complaint is filed against a judge, the JIC will look into it. It's almost like an ethics commission for politicians, but they will look into it, and more than once they have sanctioned a judge. I have watched them actually remove a judge from office. I am aware of judges, being reprimanded, and oh, by the way, judges, the appellate process is what deals with their decision making. So when a judge at the lower level gets activist or does not does what the law calls an abuse of discretion, is plainly or palpably wrong, that's the legal descriptions, then they can be reversed on appeal, and the judge has to deal with the fact that what they did was deemed by their hires to be dismissed and reversed, and even sometimes remanded with instructions about how you better do a better job next time. So they do have accountability, and that accountability is first the appellate process, and secondly, Judicial Inquiry Commission, and every state has one. On the federal bench, they're actually appointed. Once they're appointed for what's called life or good cause. Life or good cause. That means they're there as long as they want to be there, kind of like a Supreme Court justice, but they can be removed for good cause. And I know of one here in Alabama that was removed for good cause. Something about infidelity with a staff member. That'll do it. But anyway, so the bottom line is, brother, we don't like them. We have to point them out when we see it. We have to make the proper complaints to the proper authorities, and we also have to use the appellate process. The only problem, I know this is true, because I've had clients in this position, where they may have grounds for appeal. And by the way, being mad is not grounds for appeal. If you look at a judge's decision and you say, that is just plainly and palpably wrong, Judge, you just overlooked the evidence. Judge, you didn't, or Your Honor, I objected 3 times at trial and you didn't grant my objection, and you should have. All those things are appealable offenses. And the problem is the appeal process is expensive. You still got to pay a lawyer. You still got to pay court fees. You got to actually supply the transcript of the hearing to the appellate court to review so they can read it too, which means you have to pay for the transcript to be generated. I mean, you can get into a couple of $1,000s just to be allowed to appeal something. So, but then again, if it was free, there would be abuses of it. So it's a fine line. Bottom line is, I'm opining here a little bit, but there are indeed ways to hold judges accountable. Stephen from Athens says, agenda-driven justice often comes from federal district courts located in liberal states. It does. And, oh, by the way, even in red states. Because, like I said, federal district court judges are appointed for life or good cause. We've got one here in the state of Alabama, and I'm going to go ahead and step out there and say his name. It's Judge Myron Thompson. Judge Myron Thompson is the judge that the liberals always try to get to, so they will file things in his jurisdiction because they know that he is much more liberal in his view of the law, and he has overturned, I can't tell you how many things that are what I would call conservative, pro-life, Good laws passed by Republicans who took power after he was appointed. I think he was appointed. He's been on the bench for a while. He was definitely appointed by a Democrat. I'm trying to think how far back. May have been Obama, but it may be further than that. Anyway, bottom line is yes. All right, let me jump into some of this, though. Let's talk about some activist judges that we can see are activists. Now, where we can really see activist judges in the last few years is anything with Trump's name attached to it. And there have been some that have done a good job, and there have been some who, while you could tell they didn't like Trump, they still ruled in accordance with the laws and the procedures. There's two things here. One is three things actually. You're going to have rulings on the law. If the judge is the sole arbiter of the facts in the law, then he can make a decision based upon what is before him in what's called an ortinus ruling. That means it was just him by himself. He issued his rules sua sponte, meaning this I do freely of my own. But if the jury is present, if this is a jury trial, then the judge will be the decider of the legals. The jury will be the decider of the facts. And the judge will also then charge the jury with the law that they have to apply to the facts. There you go. So a judge can be reversed if you object to something being allowed in and it shouldn't have been, being allowed to be said or not said, and it should or shouldn't have been. And by the way, there's a procedure. You can't just go into court and yell, "That ain't right." That doesn't work that way. I mean, there's a reason why people have to go to law school. And there's a reason why you have to have decorum and you have to have procedure. There are what we call rules of civil procedure, rules of criminal procedure, and rules of evidence. You can't just throw anything out there. I can't tell you how many times I've had a client tell me, "Well, but you know what I saw on Facebook yesterday?" That is not evidence. I can't use that. "Well, but somebody so-and-so told me." Well, that's called hearsay. I can't use that. "Well, you know what I think is," I can't use that. That's called an opinion. And unless we're in a certain category where you have an exemption or an exception under the law, you can't just sling every opinion you've got about somebody. Now, if you want to lay a proper foundation for it, if you've been asked to form an opinion because you qualify for an exception to hearsay, we can do that. But you can't just start slinging everything at the wall and hoping it sticks. Okay, I'm really kind of going afield here, but I feel like I'm giving y'all lessons in the law. But this is courtroom, all right? Courtroom procedure is real. Courtroom procedure is not My Cousin Vinny, all right? Courtroom procedure is not even what you're going to see on Law & Order, which does a better job at the very least. Courtroom procedure is not Matlock. Courtroom procedure actually has, and depending on the courtroom, can be very formal. I mean, I've had some courtrooms where I stand up and before I say a word, I say, "May it please the court." And I'll address the court formally. "Your Honor, may it please the court. Your Honor, may I approach?" You don't just walk up to the bench and start telling the judge something. No, that is not your bench to walk up to. "Your Honor, may I approach the witness?" You may. I mean, everything has formality. Why? Order, decorum, and the proper presentation of the facts and the law. That matters. And it should matter. It absolutely should. I mean, we don't want kangaroo courts and we don't want jackleg operations. We don't want jackassery in the application of law. You can't be a nation of laws and have a nation with no decorum. But there are some judges now taking the bench that have totally lost sight of that. And a part of what we're seeing right now is in, the survival of lawfare, a lot was exposed. There were some judges who did some craziness when it came to Trump. I guess they thought they'd get away with it because they didn't think Trump would win. I don't know. There's also some craziness out there in terms of federal district courts right now ruling against things the Trump administration is doing, Doge being a classic example. We're seeing lawsuits flying right now for Doge. So here's an article I pulled off of Daily Caller. Doge, let's see, this one's titled, "Here's Where Dozens of Legal Challenges Against Trump Administration Stand." First category, Doge. Why not? It's got most of them. Doge. We've got multiple Doge legal actions being taken as Musk tries to reduce government spending. The result of these challenges has been mixed. On Monday, this article came out yesterday. So on Monday of this week, a district court judge who noted Doge's unusual secrecy found that Doge is likely subject to public records requests. Okay. I don't think Doge has been anything but transparent, probably more transparent than the Democrats have ever been. But this judge said, all right, you have to be subject to public records request. Okay, fine. But they also point out the cuts that Doge has apparently made with no congressional input appear to be unprecedented. That's the judge weighing in, giving his opinion. And that, I think, is where this judge may be crossing the line. It's too soon. In a preliminary hearing, the judge can say, I'm troubled by this. I find case precedent that says that. He didn't say that. He just said, looks to be unprecedented the way you're handling things over there, Doge. Well, we'll see where this goes. Several judges have declined to restrict Doge's access, some of which have surprised us. Judge Tanya Chutkan, who couldn't seem to get anything right when she had Trump before her in a criminal tribunal, she actually ruled in Trump's favor, or the Trump team's favor, on a case involving Doge recently. How about spending freezes? Oh, you're going to learn a lot here in a few minutes about a guy named Amir Ali. A Biden-appointed federal judge, Amir Ali, who has been on the bench, I think, for all of 4 months. He has one of the biggest spending freeze anti-Trump cases out there. And this judge, Amir Ali, who is an activist, said the executive branch not only claims constitutional authority to determine how to spend appropriated fund, but usurps Congress's exclusive authority to dictate whether the funds should be spent in the first place. A little early for that, but it clearly shows you where this judge is going. So yes, that's an activist judge. And I got more on him in a minute. Firing federal workers, gee, holy cow. Lawsuits brought by several labor unions and nonprofits. Judge William Alsup, a Clinton appointee, found that the termination of probationary employees was likely illegal. Why? They're probationary. Isn't that the very nature of being a probationary employee, that we're not sure we're going to keep you? And when we decide to keep you, we'll tell you. And if we decide not to keep you, thanks for coming in. But that activist judge believes that you don't have any authority to cancel the employment of probationary employees. Why the heck not? How about the bounds of executive authority? Here's another series of lawsuits. Obama-appointed Judge Beryl Howell said that Trump removing one of the executives at the National Labor Relations Board was illegal. Why? Well, we don't really understand, but he thinks it wasn't right. And then the executive orders. Holy cow, the executive orders. Everything from gender ideology, birthright citizenship, diversity, equity, and inclusion, all of it. Multiple lawsuits, and we're watching judges right now, like one federal judge in Maryland, blocked in February part of Trump's orders on DEI. We got any number of things happening right here. But y'all, some of these judges, I'll read them out to you here in a minute. We come back from the break. Some of these judges are literally coming to the bench as activists and seem to have difficulty setting aside their activist role prior to taking the bench and keeping it going. And that, my friends, is where we get way far afield of what I talked about earlier with Wyatt Earp, trying to keep things on an even keel and evenly applying justice overall. I'll tell you more about it after the break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. Activist judges, that's where we are. We'll talk about it. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Got an awesome text from Hillbilly Yankee from Huntsville complimenting the show. And Hillbilly Yankee, thank you very much. We appreciate that more than you can possibly know. Made my day. So I appreciate it. Gary from Decatur said, I'm sorry, Phil, but all the consequences you told Jeffro from Indiana that activist judges could face are mere slaps on the wrist, in my opinion. And the instances you cited were judges from Alabama. I wonder what the number of judges in D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, and all the other blue jurisdictions are. Probably minimal. But what I'm trying to say is don't think they live without some measure of accountability. I'm not saying it's always perfect, not by a stretch. I think that there is I think it also depends on the venue. Very much so. I mean, when you mentioned San Francisco, I don't expect a federal district court judge in San Francisco to have near the same measure of accountability for things that we care about. Keep in mind, it's what we care about versus what they care about. So yes, I totally get it, Gary, but it's not a slap on the wrist. Listen, if you're a judge and you render a ruling on a substantive matter and it gets reversed and remanded, that's a big deal. That goes on your win-loss record. So all of a sudden, you're known as that judge who gets reversed. And I'm sure it happens to all of them at some point, but then you can begin to see trends. The ones who make decisions that are inappropriate on a regular basis and get reversed often, those judges, if they're electable, they don't get reelected. Then you've got the issue of the JIC. If you've got a Judicial Inquiry Commission doing things the way it's supposed to, and in Alabama, it's happened, then you're going to see things happening just look back at Roy Moore. There's a classic example. Granted, I think that some of Roy Moore's stuff was Roy Moore, but some of it was actually just people that were out to get Roy Moore. And the JIC got involved in that. All right, so the guide to the Federalist is always great. Have I got a phone call? I am so sorry. Let me just jump on that phone call real quick. Robert from Athens, how are you?
I'm good, Phil. You doing all right?
I'm good, sir. Sorry about that. I forgot you were on the line. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. Are you old enough to remember when they in the post offices they had these billboards and they would put most wanted on? Do you remember that, or are you too young?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm about to turn 60. I remember all that.
Oh, okay. You're talking about these activist judges. I think they ought to put their pictures up on the poster board, just so everybody can see it.
Well, yeah, they have a thing now called the internet where they can actually do that. And there's, some judges get called out all the time. And some of them, though, it's not reasonable. Like doxing a judge and showing up at his house to protest is never going to be reasonable. But letting people know how they rule, that's absolutely fair game.
But, if a judge can tie the hands of our president, our great president, we don't live in a representative government. We live by whatever the judges want to do.
Well, so I'll tell you what. Hey, by the way, Robert, let me just talk on that for a minute, and I'll thank you for the call right now. So I appreciate the call. So I've heard it said before, and it's true, that the most powerful person in the world is a federal district court judge. That's the lower courts in the federal court system. Most powerful person in the world is the federal district court judge. Why? Because it's the only court of law that can tell the President of the United States what to do. Everything after that is an appeal of what that judge did. Think about it. So if a federal district court judge says, President Trump, you are hereby enjoined from taking that action with Doge, you can't do it. Well, that's the only court that can tell him what to do. Anybody who addresses it after that is just literally considering whether that court got it right or wrong. So a federal district court judge is by design part of the three branches of government. The judicial system is designed to provide the checks and balances to the executive and the legislative. If Congress gets crazy and passes a law that is unconstitutional, the courts are designed to tell them you can't do it that way. If Congress passes a law that is constitutional and the executive branch does a bad job of implementing it, then the courts are designed to help address that issue. So it's frustrating. There are times when I don't agree with it. I can look back at when Obamacare got upheld. Thank you, Justice Roberts. When Obamacare got I thought that was absolutely a travesty of justice. but it also had every level of appeal and it had every level of action. And at some point, I have to recognize I can't go any further with it. It's just stuck now. So, yeah, federal district court judges, they can be screwballs, and there are activist judges. I'm not trying to say, though, that they don't have purpose. It just means they've got to have accountability with that purpose. I got more on this. I'm going to tell you about some who are truly activists. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, don't forget, coming up bottom of the hour, by the way, we'll have a round of Butters and Lee at 3:30. And then the next dipper is going to be one you might want to hear. Almost our entire listening area is going to have a new governor coming up after the 2026 elections. Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, all having open seats because their incumbent governors are term limited and won't be running again. That makes it for a very exciting time. Who's going to run? We'll talk about that too after Butters and Lee, so stand by for that. I got several great text messages. Let me jump on some. I will tell you this, one of the greatest text messages I could get came from the lovely Charlene a moment ago. And she just pointed out something that I've actually said to juries multiple times, that you can look around the world right now. You can get really aggravated at our judicial system, but you can look around the world right now, and it's still the best one in the world. So there's that. And I think that's a perspective we need to have. I'm a lawyer, and I get frustrated. I get frustrated for my clients. I get frustrated for myself as an attorney. I get frustrated as someone who cares about politics and the enforcement of public policy. But I have been to other countries. In fact, let me step back and just tell a story. How about that? I'm going to tell a story here for a minute. Can I chase a rabbit? Do you mind?
Permission granted.
Thank you so much. Mr. President, I would like a moment of personal privilege. So, Afghanistan, 2002. Beginning of the war, I am there on a small team out in the middle of nowhere. Among all the combat operations and patrols and things that we did as we lived as a small team in the middle of an Afghan village, I mean, literally eating Afghan food and getting dysentery to prove it. And riding horses sometimes. It was craziness. But in the middle of all of that, part of my job was also to try and do things to bolster the populace's opinion, win the hearts and minds, if you will, but also show them that it was a new day and the Taliban were gone. One of the ways we could do that was to put schools back in order. The Taliban had most often seized school buildings and turned them into barracks for their troops because they were big buildings. Why not? Kids don't need an education, especially women. Women were absolutely abused and subjugated. So one of the first things we tried to do was put schools back in place, and especially girls' schools. There's a girls' school. It was really large, actually, in the community of Kunduz, where my team lived in what we called a safe house among the Afghan people. In this school, I still remember it, Bibi Khatija Tol Cobra Girls' School. The girls flocked in there to go back to school. I was like flocked in. But the Taliban, they were Neanderthals, and they didn't have any means of doing anything productive. And so rather than, go out and cut firewood and do the things that most Afghans do, they burned all the desks to stay warm in the wintertime. So the girls were all sitting on the floor. Concrete floors mostly. Concrete or dirt. They were just sitting there, but they were loving school and they were learning. So one of the things that we did was the U.S. government contracted to have desks built for those girls, and we were going to have a big opportunity to present them all these desks. I had like every carpenter in Kunduz, Afghanistan building desks. Sounds crazy. It's in a war, right? But that's part of my gig. So come the day, I'm looking for the desks to be finished up. And we're talking about several hundred desks. And I get word that the local warlord, a guy named Mirlam Khan, has decided he's going to stop the contracts. What he was really doing was looking for kickbacks. What he was really doing was trying to exert his power and be the control man. He's the strong man. Don't you not know who I am? So I got together my team, a few security guards, and we rolled in on Mirlam's headquarters. Mirlam was a strong man. He had all his flunkies standing around him. He was holding court. Picture Jabba the Hutt. That's what I'm thinking. Just go ahead and picture Jabba the Hutt, kind of a burly-looking guy, leaned back in his chair, all of his lackeys standing around him, everybody's staring. Whatever Mirlam says is funny. Whatever he wants is done. And Mirlam looks at me, and he begins to argue with me through my interpreter that he's in charge. And I said, "You are not in charge. This is a contract with the United States government. You will not stop it." At some point, he finally realized he was getting nowhere. And he said, fine, I will tell them they can begin the contract again. I said, thank you. And then he looked at me, and I'll never forget this. And I've told juries this. He looked at me and he said, well, in America, when somebody's doing things with a contract they don't like, who's in charge of it? Because here it is my job. And I said, that's easy, the lawyers. The whole room broke out laughing when my interpreter said that. They thought that was the funniest, maybe stupidest thing they'd ever heard. They broke out laughing, and I realized I was in a place right then where the rule of law had no respect. It was the rule of the strong man, not the rule of law. Lawyers, what do lawyers do? Lawyers draw up papers. That's all they do over there. They could care less. Lawyers are frivolous. It was a strong man over there that got things done. Here, the rule of law can beat the strong man. It can. So there's my story on the rule of law being powerful and why it's necessary to consider that where we are right now, it may be you may get grumpy with it, but the reality is, as much as I don't like activist judges either, I still wouldn't trade our system of jurisprudence for any in the world.
But it's stories like that that put it into perspective, because we're so blessed to live in the United States that we don't. It's almost like we forget that part of the world even exists, and we get spoiled. And obviously, stuff like that happens, like we saw with Trump with the judicial system. It's fair to call out when the judicial system falls short, but ultimately, like you said, wouldn't trade it for any other one in the world.
Absolutely. But can we do a better job? Yes. And can we avoid activist judges? One would hope. Let me tell you about a few. Amir Ali. Pray tell, Phil, who is Judge Amir H. Ali? Well, he's a Biden appointee. Oh, good. He was one of the last judges that Biden got in his last few months in office. Oh, good. Confirmed by the Senate under, I'm sure Mitch McConnell really helped with that. But confirmed by the Senate as Chuck Schumer was in charge of it, because confirmations go through the Senate only. Ali, before he came on the bench, he specialized in cases involving what he called police and prosecutorial misconduct and civil rights. Okay, red flags, danger, Will Robinson. Well, Judge Amir Ali is everything you would expect him to be. In fact, his specialty law firm was called the MacArthur Justice Center. His partner had a podcast in which his partner actually talked about moving towards defunding police and making police obsolete. Oh, good. That's the law firm he worked at before he got appointed to the bench.
That tracks.
Yeah, it does track. Tracks quite well. Ali said he didn't share those views, but yet he continued to work there. Oh, sure. Align yourselves with those who speak like that, and you are like that. How about that? It was Ali who recently said the Trump administration will have to go ahead and pay out $2 billion in USAID funds that Trump has frozen. And he's being pretty belligerent about it. The dynamic we've got is the Trump administration appealed his ruling immediately to the Supreme Court of the United States, and much to the chagrin of the conservative justices, Justice Roberts sided with the liberal judges and decided not to take up the case. In other words, Judge Ali gets to move forward. That's an activist who took the bench right there. That's an activist who literally took the bench. But I got one even worse than that, because someone needs to explain how in the world a judge by the name of Anna Reyes, I got a couple of them here. Good Lord. How did Anna Reyes take the bench? Well, Justice Anna Reyes, who I'm trying to figure out who she was appointed by, but I think it may have been Biden. But Judge Anna Reyes has made it very clear that she does not care for Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. In fact, she's even ordered him to take down his social media posts. What? Yes. So Judge Anna Reyes takes issue with the idea that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth may have something to say about transgenders serving in the military. U.S. District Court Judge Anna Reyes, a Biden appointee, there it is, who previously stated that the idea of only two sexes is not biologically correct. Oh boy. This is Fox News. Dateline yesterday. Heard arguments about the Pentagon's attempt to ban transgender individuals. Okay, so you've got a judge who has openly stated in the past they don't agree with the idea of biological sex being just two, is now presiding over a case involving transgenders in the military. What does that tell you? Immediate opportunity for recusal. So is anyone going to apply or file a motion to recuse? I don't know, but that's where we are. During the hearing, Reyes pointed to a post on X in which Hegseth quoted said, "Pentagon says transgender troops are disqualified for service without an exemption." And she began to aggressively question the Trump administration lawyers. She went on to say things too like Second Lieutenant Talbot, who is the transgender, a chick who believes she's a dude, has more commendation than books in our library. I got news. I checked into Lieutenant Talbot. He's a second lieutenant. He has no prior enlisted service other than going to OCS. He does not have a slew of commendations more than books in the library. In fact, I would dare say he probably has like an I was there ribbon and a Army service ribbon and maybe a marksmanship badge, which officers never wear anyway. Reyes fired back, saying that Secretary Hegseth's decisions appear to have been informed by studies that undercut the actual policy. In other words, what she's doing is she's spending a lot of her time criticizing Hegseth having a predisposition because she's an activist who now has the bench. She even went on to say that she has a Pac-Man machine in her office which she uses for stress release and believes that that's something that, I don't know, the whole thing was just wacky. Is there a motion to recuse? Can we get it heard, please? I got a little more on this, including one right here in Alabama. I'll tell you about him in a moment. We'll take a break and come right back, and I'll wrap this up. Activist judges, we have the best system in the world. But even the best system in the world can have some folks in it who don't keep it in the best shape. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Man, pulling pins on truth grenades in here. Got a bunch of text messages piling up. I will get to them shortly. Thank y'all very much. Please check it and send them on in. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Tell me what you think. Here's another activist judge for you. So there's a law firm called Perkins Coie. You may remember them. They're one of those mega firms. Perkins Coie. They were the ones who were the prime drivers of the Russia collusion hoax. Perkins Coie. Well, Perkins Coie just had their security clearances revoked by President Trump. So, hey, sorry for your luck, except that they got U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell at the hearing now. So U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell has decided that Trump is not allowed to revoke security clearances. Guess who's in charge of security clearances? That would be the President of the United States of America. Now, this is an injunction. It does not mean that the merits of the case can't later on decide that Trump wins. But right now, the idea that the President of the United States cannot withhold a security clearance from somebody is unconscionable to me.
That one's just hilarious to me.
It just defies description. We do have one here in Alabama, and I'll just tell you, I've never had to practice in front of him. I don't do a ton of federal court work. Most of mine is in state court. But U.S. District Judge Myron Thompson. U.S. District Judge Myron Thompson is the one judge, if I had to pick one, that I have seen do more damage to conservative issues in Alabama than anybody. He's like the judge of choice for liberals who don't like what we've got going on in the state legislature, and so they're going to sue on it. And if they take it to federal court, they're praying they get U.S. District Judge Myron Thompson. So Judge Thompson just recently heard another hearing about Alabama groups that are funding out-of-state abortions. And we'll find out what he's going to do on this. But he has constantly been in the thick of things when it comes to basically taking a look at conservative policies passed by the Alabama legislature and either reversing them, shrinking them down, abrogating their scope. And then you got others that are out there doing what they do. Like, for instance, you've got a judge right now that is deciding whether or not this Mahmoud Khalil can be deported. Now, I will say this. That judge, so far, this does not seem to be like getting far afield. I think that judge has actually said you can't deport him, but it's yet. So you can't deport him yet, but the judge also didn't release him. The judge didn't discuss that I've seen the merits of Trump's actions. The don't deport him now appears to be the judge saying, if you deport him, I will lose jurisdiction over the issue. So more to come on that. We'll wait and see. Here's the bottom line. I love our system of jurisprudence. Don't think I don't. I do. I can't stand activist judges. I can't. I have seen judges that got political and they know they're not supposed to. I have seen judges that had predispositions and they know they're not supposed to. I've seen judges who had personal contacts or prior contacts with one of the parties and they should have recused, but they didn't. And then I even had to call a judge not long ago who recused and I felt like they shouldn't. And I said, Your Honor, can I ask why you recused? Well, it's my prerogative. Well, I know it's your prerogative, sir. But I'm just telling you, on behalf of my client, I feel like they have to start the case over now and you didn't have to recuse. Well, Phil, it's not really your choice. I understand that, sir. So that's kind of that conversation went. I lost. But the bottom line is this. I don't always agree with judges, but I love our system of jurisprudence. But I can't stand an activist judge. I cannot stand an activist DA. You do not come in with the blindfold off. You have to come in with the blindfold on. I've seen lazy judges and active judges. I've seen solid judges and I've seen bad judges. I've seen political judges and I've seen apolitical judges. I've been practicing for 23 years. I feel like I've seen a bit. But the reality is this. Judges can be wrong, and I get that. I can be wrong, and they can decide that, and I get that. But a judge should never be an activist. And right now, some of what we're seeing, especially the last couple of years, we have some activist judges, especially on the federal bench.
So let me ask you something about Mahmoud.
Mahmoud Khalil.
I saw somebody arguing that the free speech, that basically this is still an infringement on his free speech because the Constitution applies to everybody in the United States, whether they're actually like a U.S. citizen or not. And I thought that was like, okay, I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but even if it is, I feel like this is not an infringement on his free speech. This is just the United States simply doing what they are legally allowed to do and revoke a student's student visa. Like I first of all, I don't know if that the Constitution applies to everybody in the U.S. even if they're a citizen or not. But even if that was true, I mean, isn't this just the government doing what they're legally allowed to do?
It is the government doing what it's legally allowed to do because federal law clearly dictates that the power to approve a visa is vested in the Secretary of State, and the power to revoke a visa is vested in the Secretary of State. And Marco Rubio said it himself quite clearly. If he had made known his intentions before he got his visa, he never would have gotten his visa. And yes, free speech, there are ways in which that can be considered to be curtailed for foreigners living in the United States, one of which is trying to undermine the authority and promote anarchy, and that's exactly what he was doing. All right, coming back, Butters and Lee, you guys stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Man, covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa on over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that prettiest little town on the plains, Auburn, and stretching across the border to Fort Benning. Yes, it's called Fort Benning, Georgia. And I mean, even big old patches of northwest Georgia and Mississippi thrown in too, just for good measure. All right, you guys, it's that time of the week. It is Thursday, which now is, by the way, branded as Thankful Thursday. So we are thankful that it is Thursday, which is the day before Friday, and we're also thankful for two people who are about to come on. Let me call the roll for our segment of Butters and Lee. Butterman, are you there?
I am here, and I am extremely thankful for today.
Outstanding. Well, I'm thankful for you, my friend. All right, and then I turn to Huntsville, coming in with her amazing contributions, the diva of punditry, Lee from Huntsville. Are you there?
I'm here.
You are indeed. All right, quorum, hit it. Whoops. All right, you guys. I ping you with questions, then you ping me with questions. Here's my first question. So, you've probably been tracking this Palestinian activist kid. He's a student at Columbia University, Mahmoud Khalil. He's a Palestinian who I think was actually born in Syria as a refugee, wound up going to college in Beirut. Now he's at Columbia. Anyway, he was arrested because he was one of the major driving forces in organizing all the on-campus protests and calling for intifada and damaging buildings and doing all the things. And as we speak right now, there are riots and major protests, to include a big one at Trump Tower in New York City, calling for him to be set free, claiming the whole thing about him being arrested and potentially deported is a free speech issue. So what are your thoughts on this? Ladies first. Lee, what do you think?
I think that becoming an American citizen is not anyone's right. It's something that's given by the American government on behalf of the American people welcoming someone in. But it's never something that you deserve or demand. And I think that this young man, being married to an American citizen or not, his association and support, I guess I would say more support, of Hamas is an absolute non-starter. We do not need someone supporting terrorist organizations in our country. We have enough of that already. And he is, by I guess, working with these student groups, kind of being their spokesperson, being one of the main supporters of this illegal activity on behalf of, with so many of them supporting Hamas, handing out pamphlets, while he's there with this Hamas support, he signed his own expulsion warrant. Sorry, yeah. I don't feel bad about him at all. I think he should go, and if his wife doesn't like it, she can go with him.
Okay, that's fair. Before I say anything further, I'll turn to the other side here and say, Butters, what do you think about it? Is it a free speech issue?
Well, so first, I think this would be a good 3-hour dialogue to actually unpack all the issues, but we don't have that. So, number one, if you break the law, you break the law.
Yeah.
So let's just stick to the free speech concept. And I would lean on what kind of occurs to me. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights.
Okay.
And I firmly believe that the right to free speech is not something given by any government. So it's the tough part. It's the tough side of handling, of actually believing in free speech. Again, if you break the law, you break the law. That needs to be unpacked. But, in terms of the student visas and all that kind of stuff, why do we have institutions, and why, as we as citizens, why are we supporting institutions that would allow, because in order to get a student visa, you've got to be in a school. Is this really even a thing for the government to regulate? Why can't the people say, yeah, you're not allowed here? So.
Well, so I think your point's well taken. I think, the thing that needs to be addressed here is the left wants this to be a free speech claim, But the right is saying that's not even the issue. We never said he can't talk. We said he can't try to create issues of national security. So that's where this thing is differing, because the Immigration and Nationality Act, I think it's Section 212, it has the different activities that a person can be deemed ineligible to maintain their visa on, one of which is supporting terrorism or creating issues of national security. So that's the thing. It was not that he said, I disagree with the U.S. government, because you're allowed to do that. By the way, there are curtails upon freedom of speech for foreigners. They are allowed speech rights under the First Amendment, but they're not allowed unfettered speech rights, the same as anybody else. You can't go yell fire in a crowded movie theater. And technically what he was doing was inciting violence and inciting anarchy and inciting the support of a terrorist action against one of our allies and us.
He spoke on behalf of groups that were that take over campus. He was supporting groups that were committing crimes. He was a spokesman for it. Give me a break. This everybody trying to make him look innocent. It's ridiculous.
I agree. Wrap it up, Butters. What were you saying?
Yeah. Again, if you're breaking the law, you're breaking the law. But I think we need to be very careful saying that the free speech is given to you by the federal government. That's not what we believe in the United States.
Yeah, we are a nation in which we are a nation of laws that are written by men, obviously, but you're referring to it as, and it is true, we're often referred to as the natural laws. There are certain immutable characteristics of law nation or around the world that we try to see supported, one of which is the right to speech. All right, great job, guys. Let me run the next question before we run out of time. We got about 5 minutes. So this is a total different track, all right? Let's talk politics for a minute, shall we? So right here in the Southeast, I mean, I don't think people are realizing what's about to happen, but we've got Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida, all of whom are facing governor's races in 2026 with open seats. There's no incumbent because all of them are term limited. And that's Bill Lee in Tennessee, Kay Ivey in Alabama, Brian Kemp over in Georgia, and Ron DeSantis down in Florida. All four of them have to leave their seats. So this is going to be the race of races. The Southeast is about to be the hotbed of governor races in the entire nation, and we're all contiguous borders. Is it possible? Here's my question for you. Is it possible that we will become a Southeastern conservative bloc? But having said that, let me just ask this. I don't care about the name. I don't want to hear I'm for this person or that person. Tell me what you're looking for in a gubernatorial candidate. Like if you had a resume, what would it look like? You first this time, Butters.
So leadership for like actual, like authentic, real leadership. I don't mean that as just a slogan to vote for. A willingness to stand up and say, to rethink, perhaps push back on the federal government and the whole idea that we need the federal government to do anything at the state level, and just come in and actually think about the state's rights, what we do well, what we should be doing well, just get back to some real pure conservative thoughts and values, and not just acquiesce to, this is just the way we've always done it.
Is there a style of leadership you're looking for?
Probably.
I mean, it can be argued that Kay Ivey's a leader.
And,
okay, there you go. Say it. Somewhat rambunctious, you said.
Somewhat rambunctious and willing to break some eggs. I'd love to see the trend that we're seeing at the federal level continue down to state levels and get us rethinking some of the ways we do business.
So meaning like the willingness that the Trump administration has to get out there and do things that haven't been done and try to rattle some cages and, like you said, break some eggs. That's what you're looking for in Alabama or wherever.
Yeah, I'd really love to see somebody go to question everything. Go back and, well, why do we do it this way? Why do we have this board? Why do we do this? I think it's
and maybe
right in line with what's happening at the federal level.
Maybe actually hold your own press conference and lead the charge on it.
Oh, that'd be crazy.
All right, Lee, what are you looking? I'm sorry, what you got?
I'd just say one last thing. I'd really love for a governor that could perhaps lead an Auburn football team to win the Iron Bowl.
Okay. So, Lee, what are you looking for in a governor as we face the 4 states right here in the Southeast, all facing empty seats? What do you want in a governor? What are you looking for?
Well, I'd like to see an Alabama governor who is, first of all, has lived here quite some time, understands the Alabama people, understands what we value, understands the vast differences between the different parts of the states and how to bring it together. I'd also like someone who's willing to stand up and have more press conferences, state actual convictions, like a Ron DeSantis. He may not always be right, but you always know where he stands in that sense, whereas Kay Ivey has been very quiet. Mm-hmm. I'd also like a governor who can help control special interests, because our state is eat up with it. And maybe someone who's not beholden. So, to those special interests. I just want someone, like you said, more willing to stand up, say the tough things, be a leader, a real leader, and get a hold of the Senate and the House of Representatives and kind of set a tone. It's like they're running it versus the governor setting a tone. So that's really what I would like to see. And I really want someone who has not a Johnny-come-lately, but someone who really has lived here, been here, knows the people of Alabama.
Okay.
On the flip side,
yeah, what?
On the flip side, I don't want somebody that's been part of the same good old boy network that seems to drive so much of our state. I think that's one of the big problems that we've got. So, got away the Johnny-come-lately to the one that's just stuck in old ways.
All right, so let me.
We can have a balance, maybe.
let me. I got I need no more than about 15 or 20 seconds from each of you. Do you feel like it's possible that the 4 states I cited there in the Southeast could form a conservative bloc of governors that described the way you just did? Could that happen? You
yes.
First, real quick. You think yes?
Yes, I think we could, especially if we continue the trend at the federal level.
All right, Lee, what do you think? Can we do it?
Yes, but I'm concerned about Georgia.
Okay. Yeah, Georgia being more purple than the other 3. All right. That's good. That's round 1 with Butters and Lee. Taking a break. We'll come right back, flip the script. They ask me questions, and I just wait with bated breath to hope I can answer them. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower, using that bulletproof influence. All right, let me go back to the phones. We got Butters and Lee here. So, ladies first, question for me. Lee, what you got?
So the age of consent law that they're working on in the House.
Yeah.
In the state of Alabama.
Yeah.
I just want everyone to realize that it's hung up due to people wanting less than 18. So it's 14 right now. We are tied with another state. Maybe it's Alaska for the youngest in the nation.
Yeah.
At 14 for being able to make major medical decisions on your own, if you can imagine that. I just want everyone in the public to understand that you're really dumb 14-year-old can make their own decisions. So what I ask of you is, why is it controversial for it to be up to age 18, considering most everything else is age 18 in this state?
Because we have some idiots in elected office. So this is one of those things that flew under the radar. No one knew it was there until somewhere around COVID, and then the transgender ideology that began to infuse itself more and more into the public domain. And suddenly you find out that, wait a minute, you've got schools that are trying to do things without the kid's parents even knowing. They're trying to give them vaccines and parents don't want it, or they're trying to transition the child without mom and dad being aware so they can't get in the way of it. And you think, wait a minute, what are you talking about? And then you find out that, well, we're going to allow that because our state law says. And we find out then that I don't know how long it's been in Alabama law. No one ever saw this, or even, I've never even heard of this until like way after I left office. And I was down there for 8 years. 14 years old in Alabama. What in God's name can a 14-year-old possibly make a decision on in life besides their own medical attention, apparently? And that makes no sense whatsoever. So why is it happening right now? Because we have knuckleheads. And by the way, there's a lot of them that want to change it. And we have some that are fighting. And why they're fighting over it, I don't know. You can't join the military until you're 18. You can't drink until you're 21. You can't even, drive until you're 16. If you're emancipated from your parents, it's a legal thing that has to happen first. But other than that, most things you're not even of the age of majority until you're 19 years old. You can't write a contract. So I got news. If they want the dad and mom to pay the bill or the insurance to cover it, they better let the parents get involved and raise that age limit up a little bit, because otherwise it's a problem. There's my thoughts on that. And I got to go to Butters unless you got a real quick closing comment.
No, I think you've put it well. And
Okay.
I agree. We have to stand up as parents.
Thank you, sister. Yeah, that needs to get changed. All right, Butters, what question you got for me, bud?
Well, a lot to unpack, but you only got a quick second.
Yeah.
So what happens? We're dividing and dividing and dividing. It seems we've got people burning Teslas and doing all this stuff. I'm seeing, we've got the president standing up and basically saying, no matter what I say, they're not going to stand up and clap.
Yeah.
I saw a sitting congressman that basically is supporting a boycott against an American factory, or American manufacturer against Tesla. Are we on the road to, hey, every business needs to have, a donkey and an elephant emblem out on their front door, and we all pick sides? And what does this mean?
No, I don't think so.
If we just kind of quit, and boycott each other? I
don't think so. I think these boycotts, first of all, these are activist moments, and these are also minorities. So I do not think the vast majority of America is like, let's go burn a Tesla. I don't think that's happening. I don't even think the vast majority of Democrats would ever agree with that. In fact, what I think you have is the fringe element on the left, the Antifa style of leftist progressivism, are the ones that are willing to do those kind of things. Now, are there people mad at Musk? That's different than burning Teslas. And so I don't think so. I don't think we're there. In fact, they did the same things. Cancel culture. We have a polarized society in many ways, but this is not new. And if you go back and look, you'll find that our nation has been more polarized in the past, AKA the Civil War, over issues like, sovereignty of states' rights and slavery. So I don't think we're anywhere near that. I think that we have some fractured politics, but I don't think we have a fractured nation. And I think the vast majority of the public is like, Buy a Tesla if you want one. Doge is doing good things. So I think we're going to wind up seeing it blow by here pretty soon. But we get these things. These flares are happening all the time. And I got 30 seconds, bud.
So how healthy is it that, if you've got a president that's like, nothing I can do will please him? Is he giving up on even trying?
No, I think he was making a statement of fact. I don't think that. I think what he was doing, I think he stole their air. He robbed them of their moment by sucking the air out of the room, by pointing out, there's nothing I can do tonight that would make you happy. And he was right. They wouldn't even cheer for a 13-year-old cancer survivor. So in this particular case, no, I don't think he was saying he's given up. I think what he was saying was, I have a job to do. I have a mandate for the people. And there's nothing I can do to make y'all happy. So I'm going to do what I'm here to do. And by doing that, though, the Democrats, suddenly their protest seemed hollow. And I think that was very key. And it was a very positive moment, I think, in his speech. All right. That's it, I guess. That was a fast half hour. All right, that's Butters and Lee. Love you both. Thank you so much. We're taking a break. We'll come right back. Going to jump into Who Dat for the Governor. We'll talk about it in detail. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national. I'm talking about sometimes the international. And oh, yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Thankful Thursday. Thankful Thursday. That's what we're calling it from now on. We got Meatloaf Monday, Taco Tuesday. Of course, Wednesday is the Camel Day. We play the Camel Hump Day montage. And then we get down to, of course, Friday has got the explosions and the applause. But we had to find something. It just wasn't resonating. It was Turbo Thursday. It was like, I don't know. Okay. So we actually polled the audience, and the winner, which, by the way, included my sweet love, Charlene, was Thankful Thursday. And we have a sound effect for that now. Play that new sound effect, JP.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you.
Nice.
I mean, I'm biased, but I like it.
Give yourself some applause. I think that's worthy. That's actually worthy. And I know we said it at the beginning of the show, but I love the fact that there are 2 instances of the Zelensky
debacle.
Debacle, yes. The moment that we had, the Zelensky undoing in the Oval Office, one being Trump and one being J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
You got to be more thankful.
Have you said thank you once?
Perfect. Good job, man.
Also, like the 2 Michael Scott appearances in there as well. And plus the Ricky Bobby Talladega Nights had to do the cameo in there too. I thought that was Ricky Bobby. It was.
Hey, by the way, I'm going to take a quick moment here and just mention, I know some of y'all are tracking this already, but this weekend looks to have some very severe weather around our listening area. And I'm talking about all over Alabama, every part of our listening area here, North Georgia, yes, East Tennessee, yes. So James Spann, who is one of the most respected weather guys in the Southeast, he's posted just now on his Twitter page. I'm going to read parts of it. Dangerous severe weather threat. Alabamians will need to pay very close attention to the weather tomorrow night through Saturday night, as a dynamic storm system will bring 2 rounds of severe thunderstorms to the state. Round 1 is during the night, Friday night from around 10 to 8 o'clock in the morning the next day. The Weather Service has defined this as an enhanced risk, like a level 3 out of 5, for places like West Alabama, as far east as Northeast Alabama, like Scottsboro, Jackson, up into Tennessee and the Chattanooga, North Georgia region. If you live over there in Rising Fawn area, Rome, that area. Round 2, though, is the big one. He calls it the main show. Round 2 is the main show, starting at around noon on Saturday through 3 a.m. on Sunday. We're at a moderate risk, which is a level 4 out of 5, expanded across the region I just mentioned. Storms capable of producing large hail, damaging winds, tornadoes. A few very violent, long-track tornadoes are possible. And he basically says, just know your safe place. Know your plans. Don't travel if you don't have to. Recognize you might want to be, near to the home, and take care of your pets. Take care of your, batten down the hatches and make sure you don't have any loose stuff sitting on the deck. So there's that. I just point that out to you because we love y'all, and we want to make sure that you know that this is coming. It's coming starting tomorrow night, but the big deal is Saturday midday. Be weather aware. Just saying. All right. I got a bunch of text messages to clean up. Holy cow, I got a bunch. And it looks like we got a brand spanking new one, Beverly from California. I'm loving that. Get her plugged in. She's plugged in already. Thank you. So this is Beverly from California. I have an idea for Thursday. It's called it 3 Cheese Pizza Thursday. We can be thankful for 3 Cheese Pizza Thursday.
All the other ones are food, Maybe we can afford one to be non-food related. Yeah. Unless we'll start off the show every day just hungry.
I usually end the show hungry. How about that? I'm usually heading home and calling Charlene saying, "What's for dinner?" All right. Thank you, Beverly. And by the way, we are glad you're in the audience. Welcome to it. You are a right side ruffian out there on the left coast, and we're glad. By the way, there's a bunch of conservatives in California.
I was about to say,
there's a bunch.
It's glad to know.
There's a whole bunch. There's probably, I'm going to hazard something here. Knowing that their population is that much bigger than ours, because Alabama, 5.2 million-ish, Tennessee, I got to look back and see, I want to say 7 million. But the reality is there's so many people in California, they probably have more conservatives than we have here, just not per capita.
I don't think it's ridiculous to say that.
I don't think it is.
And we saw California shift dramatically to the right.
Oh, we picked up 10 counties and made them red. Listen, there's something afoot. Dave from Capshaw, Alabama says, talk about the inmates running the asylum. Oregon Mental Health Advisory Board includes a member who identifies as a turtle. I saw that. That's a woke world segment. I think I'll have to bring that up another time. But Dave, thank you very much. Ken from Harvest says, thank you for your stance on the Constitution and the law. You, sir, are a credit to your profession. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And then he says, okay. He says, you want to hear a lawyer joke? Okay, sure. He says, why don't sharks bite lawyers? It's a professional courtesy. Just, can I have a womp womp on that? Just a womp. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ken. Thank you. John from Huntsville earlier, I didn't see it. Now I'm coming back to it. It says, Phil, fantastic monologue. If you missed it, you should go back and hear it because I talked about Wyatt Earp, actually, and I talked about the even application of justice. John from Huntsville says, Phil, fantastic monologue. I'm thankful for JP's magnificent sound effect skills. Also, Phil, I got to know, do you like boiled peanuts? Because Dale Jack says anybody who likes the taste of boiled peanuts is mentally deficient. It just so happens I love boiled peanuts. Well, John, at the risk of my grade today, I will tell you that I think boiled peanuts are nasty. Just saying. I'm a dry roasted man. I like them dry roasted with salt. That's where I'm at. Boiled peanuts ain't never meant to be boiled, brother. You can like them if you like them, but I don't like them. I think they're basically wrong.
I don't know if I've ever even had boiled peanuts, so guess I'm not missing out on much.
You're not. The bag's always wet. And
it's just gross. I don't want my peanuts wet.
No, and you got soggy shells.
Yeah, no.
I like putting the whole shell of a, yes, that's right. Suck the salt right off that bad boy, crack it with your teeth, spit out the shell, and eat what's left.
Well, I played baseball my whole life, so I was grab a handful of sunflower seeds.
Sunflower seeds.
And so you just gotta do the same with the peanuts.
If you ain't dipping Copenhagen, you gotta be doing seeds.
Yes. Oh.
The alternative though is one of my favorites. Absolutely one of my favorites. Big League Chew bubblegum.
Oh yes.
I actually carried that overseas.
Really? Yeah.
Big League Chew bubblegum.
My baseball days were filled with sunflower seeds and Big League Chew, as they should have been.
As they should have been. Just a pinch between the cheek and gums. Chew it till you can't chew it no more. I've actually, by the way, at Ranger School, now I'm chasing a rabbit. We didn't do food, but we're going to talk about some stuff. So at Ranger School, we were allowed, I've talked about it before, you weren't allowed to have extra food. You were allowed to have the 1 MRE a day they issued to you, period. Don't get caught with any more. But you were allowed, going to the field, to have 1 licky and 1 chewy per day for the days you're in the field.
A licky and a chewy.
A licky and chewies. And this is a big deal. So take notes. Lickies and chewies. If you go into the field and you want something that's going to last, right? So basically, you're got a 7-day field problem. You're allowed to have 7 lickies, 7 chewies, and they would expect it. Lay out your lickies and chewies. You lay them out there on the poncho, and they'd come by and check all your gear and count your lickies and chewies. So then the question became, what are you going to do for your lickies and chewies? Well, lickies are hard candy, chewies are gum. So my go-to was Jolly Ranchers for my lickies because they last forever. You can lose a tooth with a Jolly Rancher if you're not careful, but they would last forever. And they had like a deep flavor. My chewies, I discovered, was Hubba Bubba watermelon flavored bubblegum. I once chewed a piece of Hubba Bubba watermelon flavored bubblegum because we never slept. I once chewed it for 3 days straight without spitting it out.
Wow.
The same piece of gum, 3 days straight, nonstop. It made me feel like I was eating when I really wasn't, chewing that gum until all of a sudden it's like the molecular structure just decided to quit. It just gave up. And while I'm chewing it, it turned to foam in my mouth. The whole piece of gum just turned to foam. I didn't know it could do that. But apparently I destroyed the molecular structure of my chewy.
You know, you might just have the world record for longest continuous time of chewing gum.
You know, there was no way I could have done Big League Chew because it's in a pouch. They
Yeah.
couldn't count that. I guess I could have tried to sneak in 1 pouch per day. Nah. All right. I was talking about chasing a rabbit. All right. Kennan from Huntsville says judges can be impeached. Yeah, we were talking about activist judges earlier. Says judges can be impeached. I think the legislature should impeach the worst judge each year. We can't just go, okay, it is time for the annual Hunger Games. We will find our tributes. May the odds be ever in your favor.
Afuera!
Afuera! You there. We don't like you. You wear green ties every day to work. Afuera! No, but you're right. Judges can be impeached by the legislature. I forgot you had that. We're just having fun right now. Hey, Junebug from Hartselle, who we got to meet the other night. Junebug from Hartselle checking in. She says, I am loving Thankful Thursday. Great sound effect, JP. We can never be thankful enough for the many ways that God has chosen to bless us. By the way, I am so over the crazy liberal judges. Yes. Thank you, Junebug. By the way, it was great to meet you the other night. Yellow Dog Mike is checking in. Yellow Dog Mike says, looks like Trump's war on veterans is gutting the VA. Hope you chuckleheads are happy that your draft-dodging felon is trashing Americans. Shame on all of you. Can I have some laughter or something out of that? That's just silly. Gutting the VA. How about this? The VA, as a veteran who, by the way, uses the VA system, I will tell you right now, the VA system has been bloated. It's been bloated with people that weren't doing a good job. The private sector seems to always outmatch their capabilities at the VA. And I think that streamlining the VA the cream of the crop is going to rise to the top. There you go. I think you're going to wind up seeing the best employees still remain. We're going to get rid of the DEI hires and the people who are retired on the job. And we're going to get back to doing what's best for veterans, and we're going to do it with streamlined services in terms of bloating of government. We're going to get with streamlined, and we're going to be more effective at applying services. So that's my thought, Yellow Dog. And oh, by the way, I use the VA. I feel like I'm equipped to say that.
Notice they call cutting the waste gutting. Like
yes.
they make it seem like they're completely just decimating it from the ground up.
If I have 10 apples and I only need 3, so I decide to give the other 7 away, have I gutted my apple stock?
You've gutted your apple. You've gutted yourself, by the way. You starved yourself getting rid of all those unnecessary apples.
Steve from Huntsville says, I have not verified this, but the word on the street is that Representative Hank Johnson is concerned that Rosie O'Donnell moved to Ireland. It may tip over. That's awesome. That is so awesome. Representative Hank Johnson. Tip over. Jeff from Town Creek says, this is a long text. I'm not sure I can do all this one. Hang on a second. Says, Phil, it's been a long time since I've written in. I just got in from Uganda. Wow. I got to tell you, I haven't been traveling now with my job. I've been to over 130 countries, never seen a better system or a better place to live, and right here in the United States of America. All my flight home yesterday, I started out in Uganda. I went to Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, I met a young lady who was struggling a little bit. I helped her get her bags, everything off the plane. Come to find out she's a student to be a doctor. She only has a residency left. She told me the last 3 months being overseas has been the best thing that ever happened for her as far as her relationship with our country. You said that she never loved America. She said she never loved America more than when she got to come home and have running water and electricity at work and knew that the street lights were going to work, that people would follow the rules. Keep up the good work. I think you're doing a great job. You're a good service to the community, Jeff from Town Creek. Jeff, thank you, man. Wow. Love to hear what you were doing in Uganda, and I'm glad you're home safe. I agree with that. There is something to be said for leaving what you've got to make you appreciate where you are, right? I can remember doing a mission trip to Mexico, Reynosa, Mexico, which is a hotbed of drug activity now and cross-border traffic. Reynosa, and we built so-called houses for people. They were like the size of garden sheds. But I came home appreciating everything that I had so much more because I saw what others didn't have. All right, we got to take a break. I ran long. We'll come right back. I'm going to jump into a few more text messages and then get into who dat for governor in 2026. Who's running for governor? What do you think? And oh, by the way, y'all text me and tell me, what do you want in a governor? Not a name, but what do you want in the person? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. So I got several things to run down here with you about the governor's race. So first of all, do bear in mind that, like I said earlier during the Butters and Lee segment, we have I don't remember this happening in my memory, but we have an opportunity right now to see open seat races for term limited governors, the seats, I mean, in Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida all at the same time. So you've got Kay Ivey, Bill Lee, Brian Kemp, and Ron DeSantis, all term limited. Their seats are now open. Listen, that's a thing, man. In the political world, that's like a tornado season in weather, right? This is big doings. So this is gonna be a dynamic race. In Alabama, what do we have? Right now, the two big names being talked about, it's three really. Rick Pate is the ag secretary, and Rick Pate's a great guy. I know him. I love Rick Pate. I think he's a solid dude. But I believe Rick Pate just decided, you know what? I can see the handwriting on the wall here. I'm going to run for lieutenant governor. So he's doing that. So who are the top two names in Alabama? They are indeed our current Lieutenant Governor, Will Ainsworth, who's been on this show several times, and our U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville, who's been on the show many times. I love them both. I will tell you this. I think that Tuberville's name ID means that if he wants to run, that he's the one to beat. I think it will be Tuberville's race to lose at that point. And he's not ruling it out. He's not ruling it in or out, to be honest with you. 1819 News has a story came out just 2 days ago. The Tuberville for governor discussion gained steam after he told somebody recently, I haven't had a lot of time to think about it, but a lot of people are calling and telling me things. He said, here's what I tell them. I want to do what's best for the people of our state. I'm not doing it for me or anything else other than I want to give back. I will tell you this, Tuberville's got all the money in the world. He doesn't have to run for anything. He's not trying to make a living, and he's been a great senator. I would hate to lose him in the Senate, but I could see him coming home and not having to worry about flying back and forth to D.C. and be able to enjoy his house, at the lake periodically. And I think he would be a governor that would literally be the guy who calls the press conference and rallies the troops. I think he would go pure on like Trump, Ron DeSantis style, and we'll see. Will Ainsworth right now is saying, according to an article from AL.com, that if Tuberville gets in, it does not change the calculus for him. He says, Senator Tuberville's done a good job. That does not impact my decision. Okay. He says that. I heard there was a poll that came out recently that said that Tuberville was way ahead. If they both jumped into the race tomorrow, Tuberville has like a 60-15 lead. Haven't seen that poll, but I've been told by somebody who has seen that poll. I will say this. That's going to be a dynamic race. Right now, I think in Alabama, it's Tuberville. We'll talk more about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, all you right side ruffians out there, you are listening to Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew, goes from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that prettiest little town on the plains called Auburn. And yes, stretching across to Fort Benning. Did I call it Fort Benning? I did. And even big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in for good measure. All right, listen, welcome to the final half hour here on a Thankful Thursday. A bunch of text messages from y'all. I'll get to those in just a moment. So keeping this thing going about who dat for governor. So Alabama, I do believe right now, if Tuberville decides he wants it, it's his race to lose. Will Ainsworth has certainly been vying for that job now for several years, and rightfully so. He's been the lieutenant governor. He's done a great job there. He's been probably one of the most active lieutenant governors we've had. And so I love Will Ainsworth personally. So I think that he's a viable candidate. I do think though name ID and push from the public, I think it's going to wind up being Tuberville if he decides to get into that race. Tennessee, what you gonna do there, volunteer state? Well, Tennessee. How about this? Tennessee's 2026 gubernatorial election is also shaping up. Pulled this off the Nashville Banner. Right now, we're looking at Senator Marsha Blackburn, who I like Marsha Blackburn in the Senate. But Marsha Blackburn has been up there for a number of years, and also Congressman John Rose are both saying they're running. They've kind of soft launched their campaigns because you can't officially declare your intent under the law until you get to a certain date. In Alabama, it's 1 year from the day of the primary before you're allowed to actually declare openly and begin raising money. So I believe it's the same way in Tennessee, but the bottom line is this. Right now, we're looking at the two most viable candidates that have announced their intent to, pursue the option, and we're talking to people about it, and wink, wink, nod, nod. I'm not really official, but here I am, Marsha Blackburn, U.S. Senator, and Congressman John Rose. So we'll see how that goes, but right now, I would say that once again, and keep in mind, John Rose, he can be a great congressman, but the truth is a congressman runs in a district, a senator runs statewide, and a governor runs statewide. So Marsha Blackburn has already run statewide races and probably has better name ID, which is huge. And keep in mind, there's things you look for. You want the person who can do retail politics. You want the person who can do fundraising, because you can't do it without money. But then you also want the person who has what's called a favorable, unfavorable, good balance. You want more fave than unfave. And then you got to have name ID. And you think about, everybody who's in office thinks that people know who they are. Listen, I had been very, very active in my community and in my community's politics and, in my community's ministry and then I ran for office in my community and realized I didn't know anybody. I knew people in my bubble. That's the thing. Your bubble's got to be big when you run for office. And you can build name ID, but Marsha Blackburn is just like, in many ways, like what's going on with Tommy Tuberville. She's ahead of the game because her statewide name ID is going to be much higher. So there's that. Now we do have one state senator, I think he is, or is he? No, he's actually a congressman. I'm sorry, I apologize. The Chattanooga region U.S. Representative Chuck Fleischman has already endorsed. He's getting out there early. Times Free Press has him saying he has already endorsed Marsha Blackburn for governor. So people are beginning to line up already. Whose camp you gonna be in, man? What are you gonna say? Well, you're gonna run a risk, man. You get out there too early, people know where you are, and then if they don't run, what are you gonna do? You're gonna be the guy who turned against them. You know what? It's like playing cards. You can either keep the cards close to your vest, or you can go ahead and start calling the bluff early. In this particular case, Chattanooga Congressman Chuck Fleischman from the Chattanooga region has said that he's in for Marsha Blackburn. I think right now, those two races, I think you're looking at Marsha Blackburn and Tommy Tuberville have the edge if they both decide to jump in the race. Georgia, I don't know what to tell you about Georgia. I don't know what to tell you about Georgia. I don't know him, but the Attorney General of Georgia, a Republican, is a guy named Chris Carr. But I've heard he's the establishment guy. He's like the Chamber of Commerce style Republican. He's the guy. He's the Mitch McConnell would probably choose it. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know him. I'm not steeped in Georgia politics, but I will tell you this: those of y'all in North Georgia, Brian Kemp is out 2026. He's term limited. So you got a brand new competitive seat, and you've got Democrats and Republicans lining up. And with the Atlanta blue sections that we've got, Democrats have opportunities. I mean, look at it. Right now, they've got 2 Democrat senators from Georgia, of all places. Georgia. 2, I mean, literally, Ossoff and Warnock.
I think that's going to change, personally.
I think
Knock on wood.
I think so. I mean, I think it's very possible, especially Ossoff.
I mean, they made it loud and clear when they voted on their radical bills that they voted on.
Yeah, they did.
And their constituents, I would think, are not quite happy.
I would agree. By the way, the Georgia Lieutenant Governor, a guy named Burt Jones, and Georgia Secretary of State, who's been rather controversial over the last few years, Brad Raffensperger, are also floating their potential for bids for the GOP primary. So the GOP primary could get pretty robust. Right now, the Democrats, the only one I know of is a Reverend Olujimi, I don't know how to pronounce it. He goes by the nickname Ulu Brown, Democrat. Well, we'll just see. All I know is this: we need our Georgia back. All y'all out there in ruffian land, we need our Georgia back. Just saying. So there you have it. I didn't even get into Florida right now. I think Byron Donalds is one of the lead candidates declaring that he's going to be running for governor. He's already gotten the Trump endorsement. I strongly suspect that Tommy Tuberville would get a Trump endorsement if he wanted it. I don't know for a fact, but I think that you might see that coming out of Tennessee with Marsha Blackburn. I do not for a second think that Brad Raffensperger over in Georgia would get the Trump endorsement. Just saying. But I do believe it's possible to get Georgia back. So.
By the way, I have some comments on the live stream here talking about this. First, Joe from Decatur says that Governor Tuberville, so there's that. But then we also have another comment that says, who knows if Tuberville will run for governor or not, but I do know that I'm perfectly fine if Katie Britt becomes the senior senator from Alabama. She says she's got her act together and performing ahead of many seasoned senators. This is in no way a criticism of Tuberville. I would agree with all that, except that she got her act together. I don't know what mess up she had to get her act together, but other than that, yeah, I would agree with that.
Just a general statement. She appears to already have her act together, is what he's saying, I think.
Well, no, it says she's got her act together. Oh, maybe he is just saying she's got her act. Either way. If he was saying, oh, thank God Katie Britt got her act together, I would, disagree.
It's all
with
in
that,
context.
Yeah.
Mike from Florence says, oh God, here come more lawyer jokes. My gosh. Mike from Florence, if I get my mouse to work. Mike from Florence says, what do you call 3 lawyers at the bottom of the ocean? A good start. Dun-dun-dun. Do you have give me a womp or something? Lawyer jokes. Call y'all your lawyer jokes. Adam from Athens says, Big League Chew is great for 12 seconds, and Jolly Ranchers are my guilty pleasure. Adam, okay, good enough. Yeah, Big League Chew, you can about choke on the sugar in the first few minutes. I actually have to spit it out, which makes you feel like you really are dipping at that point. Jody from Notasulga says, Colonel, come on down to Auburn, watch a baseball game, and eat some of their boiled peanuts. It doesn't get much better than that. Jody, I think environment does help. And I would imagine I would probably like boiled peanuts better at a baseball park. But overall, I think if I had the option between dry roasted or boiled, it's going to be dry roasted every time. TL from Huntsville says, can Yellow Dog Mike find anything to be thankful for on Thankful Thursday? Yellow Dog Mike, you were asked a question. Can you find something to be thankful for? TL from Huntsville and I both want to know. Shane from Athens says, these celebrities won't stay in the other countries or the liberals because these other countries won't put up with that pronoun crap and transgender silliness. Fair. We'll see. We got a brand new texter in the line, Deborah from Harvest. Deborah, we're glad you're with us. She says, Phil, you ought to watch John Wayne's movie McClintock if you like Tombstone. I have. And yes, I do like John Wayne. Anything with John Wayne is good. David from Huntsville says, thankful for so many things. You and our friends, Phil. Glad we will get a new governor. I want one like DeSantis, capable leader, principled conservative. No, I'm not going to run. No, no, I'm not going to run. Thank you very much. Shag Nasty the Atheist checking in. Shag Nasty says, Tuberville from governor, get him off the national stage. LOL. Okay. I don't think you won't feel his impact, though, Shag Nasty.
It's not like we're going to replace him with a liberal. I'm just saying that if he does run for governor. So, yeah, I think you're getting a conservative either way. Knock on wood.
But then Shag Nasty actually asked me a serious question. Going back to our discussion earlier, he says, what are y'all's thoughts on overturning birthright citizenship? If being born in the U.S. to parents that were born in the if being born in the U.S. to parents that were born in the U.S. should make you a citizen, what should? Okay. First of all, no one is saying that if you were born in the U.S. to U.S. citizens, that's a problem. If they were born in the U.S. and you were born in the U.S., you're pretty much guaranteed. But I think what you're talking about, though, is illegal aliens coming over here and doing what we call, anchor babies or birthing tourists. So I'm for overturning that, to be honest. And I don't think that the law, Shag Nasty, I don't think that the law is as specific as people always uphold it to be, but it will require judicial interpretation. It's not going to be an executive order that can get this one done. Why? Because it's in our Constitution. But the wording of it has to be interpreted. Was it ever meant to have 20 million people flood across the borders? Many of them have babies here. They came here illegally. They broke the law to get in here. Some of them skirted the law to get here. And then they had a baby while they're here in automatic citizenship. And I don't think the founders ever intended that to be the framing of the birthright citizenship discussion, ever.
Even if it's not overturned, I would like for it to at least be amended to where it can't be taken advantage of like it is right now.
I think what you're going to wind up happening, I don't think it'll be overturned. I think it'll be interpreted by the courts.
Yes.
The Supreme Court of the United States will say, at some point, they'll say, the interpretation of that statute or that constitutional provision is this. And the world will have to go, all right, there it is. And then the only way around it then is to amend the Constitution, which is far more laborious. Bob from Madison. Thank you, Shag Nasty, by the way. Thank you for the real question. Bob from Madison says, hey, Phil, you ever seen The Quiet Man? I have. One of the few movies that John Wayne did that was not the usual style for him. The Quiet Man. It was a good movie. I'll tell you what else I like, too, is his very last movie, The Shootist. Did you ever see that?
I don't think so.
So I just lost what's the name of the guy that played Opie on Andy Griffith? Hang on a second. I had a brain cramp because I wasn't prepared to talk about it. Are you looking him up?
I am looking him up, yeah.
Opie. Who played Opie?
Ron Howard?
Ron Howard. Ron Howard, as a teenager, maybe young 20s, plays a young guy who's fascinated by John Wayne's character, who's a gunslinger. But he's a gunslinger in the days when the West is becoming more civilized. There's automobiles, there's things that are changing. He's like a dying breed, but he's actually dying because he has cancer. So it's the story of a gunslinger coming to terms with his own mortality and this kid who worships him, and John Wayne's basically saying, don't worship me. It's a great movie. It was actually John Wayne's last movie too. And then last one before I go to the break here on a Thankful Thursday, Tuberville for Governor, Phil Williams for U.S. Senate. Junebug. I am flattered, Junebug, but right now my calling is the microphone that I have in front of me. All right, you guys, thankful for all of you. We're taking a break. We'll come right back. We'll wrap the day. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Man, making common sense like a superpower. Bulletproof influence, baby. Let me go to the phones. That's Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Today's my Friday.
Oh, that's right. Today is your Friday. Well,
this week anyway.
I'm hoping you don't have to do much driving in the next little bit because we got some nasty weather coming.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Man, I tell you what, it's. I guess it's going to get rough apparently, the way everybody's talking. So.
Yeah, I'm saying maybe go ahead and tie some things down and make sure you know your plans and just keep things keep things alert. But what's on your mind, man? What do you think about all this stuff we talked about today?
Hey, you're talking about the legal aliens having babies, and if they're a citizen or not. If I was in court, I would argue that if you have two illegals coming in and then having a child here, I would argue that it's the fruit of a poison tree, because they're here illegally. So why should you benefit from something that's done illegal?
You're exactly right. Fruit of the poison tree is actually used differently in legal. That's usually evidence you've gathered that you shouldn't have been allowed to gather. But in this case, I see what you're saying. It's like one crime begat a good thing, and crime should not begat good things. That makes sense.
Yeah, if you rob a bank and give the money to your wife, can she keep the money? I mean, basically.
Or can she at least keep the diamond ring you bought her with the money you stole?
Oh, yeah. Well, that might be. According to if she marries it or not.
Yeah, that's... Pay no attention to the diamond ring on her wrist or on her finger. Well, I mean, I think this is going to get dealt with, and I think that Trump's going to have to... he's going to have to pursue this. The only way it's going to get to the courts for us to have a rendering of a decision from the Supreme Court is for this to be done and dealt with, and then it'll be challenged, and we know it will. But the challenge is what we need, actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the Supreme Court, I don't know. He's talking about how the courts overturning everything and stuff. With us having this many supposedly conservatives on the Supreme Court, I'd hate to see if we'd lose another one or two of them. I mean, my gosh, you don't know. It seems like the activist judges, it seems the way they actually go for some reason. I don't know what the thinking is, but it seems like even the best of the conservative judges always seem to kind of turn a little bit liberal on us.
Well, there's talk about whether there might be a vacancy coming up in the near future. As some of the senior members of the court begin to get towards the end of their terminal time in the position, if you know what I mean. And so if Trump can appoint one or two, I mean, Trump changed the layout of the court. Him getting elected is what gave us the ability to do things like Roe v. Wade and stuff we've never been able to do. Not everything is going the way I wish it would, but by and large, it's a whole lot better than it used to be. And I'm hoping he gets to make another appointment or two in the coming years. All right, brother, be safe on the road, man. I got about a minute left. I got to throw a few things in, but thank you and blessings on you.
Have a good one, Phil. Batten down them hatches.
That's right, man. We'll see you. John from Huntsville got the grades in. Says Butters and Lee get an A+ for their equally amazing performances. Phil, you get an A+ for your spectacular performance, but only because after I gave you a 10-point deduction for saying boiled peanuts are nasty, I later gave 10 points back to you for saying your favorite bubble gum is Hubba Bubba Watermelon, because that's my favorite too. Hey, how about that? However, today's winner is obviously JP. He says with a perfect A++. Congratulations, by the way. He says, I no longer have Duke winning the March Madness. Their best player injured his ankle today.
Yeah, that was pretty nuts. The guy that was going up against Janai Broome for Player of the Year sprained his ankle today, so we'll see if he continues to play the rest of the year.
It's pretty nuts, but not boiled nuts.
No, boiled nuts. Never boiled nuts.
Never boiled nuts. Dave from Decatur, brand new in the text line. Dave, we're glad you're with us. Says, want to check in. First text to your show. Absolutely love it. If I miss it at work, I usually follow it with the YouTube segments. Dave, thank you. You are a right side ruffian. Give that man some applause. We welcome you to the text lines, Dave. Thank you very much. All right, you guys, music's playing. I didn't get to give my opinions on what kind of governor I'm looking for, but I'll tell you about that tomorrow. In the meantime, here's the bottom line. There are more of us than there are of them. God is still on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.